Lock in, Deadheads, because a generational update just hit the Deadlock servers. Hero bans have arrived. You can finally veto heroes that you'd prefer to avoid in games of Deadlock in the big 2026. On top of that, we've had a massive round of balance changes and ability tweaks to 16 different heroes. That's nearly half of the entire cast. And some global item changes regarding weapon rate of fire. So sit back, relax, get your Deadlock dial turned up to 11, and let's kick off Patch Notice. As always, I'm your host Jacky, and you're watching Patch Notice here on Dead Air. Myself and Daisy have been hard at work covering all the new content and heroes arriving in the Cursed Apple, so I didn't expect Yoshi and the Deadlock team at Valve to drop a new balance patch, but here it is. And for all our new YouTube members, stick around until the end of the video to see your names featured in the credits. And if you've not become a Deadhead, consider signing up and supporting me and Daisy creating Deadlock content full-time today. And now, back to the video. Right then, straight out the gate, Valve have added a majorly requested mechanic to Deadlock's public game modes: hero bans. You can now select one hero in your roster screen by using the middle mouse button to tell the matchmaking system you'd prefer to avoid that hero. When the game begins, it will announce which two heroes were banned. Yoshi states that it's capped at only 2 heroes for now, implying this could increase in the future. This will also not affect any of the new heroes during the initial release window, so I assume you'll be able to veto the new heroes after the voting event ends. Additionally, you'll now have to select 4 heroes to queue a game of Deadlock in parties with 3 to 4 members, avoiding the ability to force the matchmaker to give you all of your preferred hero picks guaranteed by cheesing the selection system. What do you think about this approach, the hero vetoes and the matchmaking system changes? Let us know down below in the comments. An intriguing one is that weapon rate of fire has received a global nerf. Fire rate increases and reductions from most abilities and items are now reduced globally by a small margin. This, alongside the item changes in this patch, feel like a big blow to the haze mains of the Cursed Apple, and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I'd found Gun to be in a good spot as of late, and had most of my gripe coming from Spirit Heavy Burst builds, but I'll save my full analysis until I've had a few more games under my belt on this new patch. However, from the games I've played following the hotfix dropping, I've not loved the adjustments that much. We've also had multiple on-bullet hit resistance reduction debuffs changed, to now apply increasing damage on subsequent hits rather than on the initial hit, requiring you to remain on target and build those stacks to gain maximum value. Lastly, for the general changes, you'll now be able to see your dash speed listed on the vitality screen. If you don't know, this can be found by mousing over the vitality indicator when inside the shop menu in Deadlock. A neat little adjustment there from Valve, giving you a better sense of the dash buckets that heroes belong to. We also had some naming changes and item reworks given to debuff remover and curse. You'll find debuff remover has now been changed to dispel magic, and works very differently, no longer building from debuff remover. Spellbreaker will now also upgrade from debuff reducer. They also changed the name of Curse to Cursed Relic, and it will no longer grant plus 15% weapon damage. Whilst holding the item, you'll also now have a minus 8% total damage penalty. There's a lot of item adjustments inside of this patch, and I'd recommend adjusting your builds whilst cross-referencing the patch notes to get up to speed on the new meta itemization, as there's a lot of minor and major tweaks. I'll touch on a few important ones later on in the video. Next then, it's time for the meat and potatoes of the update, the hero changes. Our first hero on the docket for balance adjustments is Abrams. His gun fall-off range has been brought down from a 20 to 46 meter range to a shorter 17 to 40 meter range, reducing the distance effectiveness of his weapon and further pushing the mighty shotgun revolver to be best in close quarters combat. Bullet growth also got toned down, with the value being scaled back. Ability-wise, it's Siphon Life's tier 3 AP investment being reduced to a plus 20 damage per second buff, and now granting it increased spirit scaling to compensate at the rate of a plus 0.12 times multiplier. Shoulder charge at tier 1 has been fixed to no longer trigger on non-heroes, whereas Seismic Impact got a few adjustments. It will now have its base damage increased by 20 and a stun duration of an additional 0.1 second. The patch notes also clarify that it should have better collision consistency now. Next on the list, it's Bebop, who's arguably had the most impactful buffs and nerfs in this update. Exploding Uppercut Tier 3 no longer grants plus 100 ammo, however it will grant you 20% of your missing HP back on an enemy hero hit. I've already found this to be absolutely insane for melee investment builds on Bebop players, with them throwing out punches and uppercuts intermittently to self-sustain massively. And they're able to thrive in the melee when taking on multiple players in close range. I don't love the idea of him having a heal on Exploding Uppercut, but I've seen the Scrap Golem mains loving this one, so let's give it some time and see how it goes. All I'll say is, be prepared for very tanky Witchmail Bebop builds to start popping up an awful lot more. Regarding bombs, they've had the damage soft cap slashed down to 60 hits and 7 kills, rather than the newer 100/10 split system that was introduced a few patches back. However, bombs will now drop on the ground and continue to count down before exploding when purged off of players, so be careful out there and communicate with your team so you don't just accidentally drop bombs on them. Self-cast for the bomb has also been gutted from his kit, and the tier 2 AP upgrade will give you an additional 5 damage, so a mixed bag here. Big nerfs, but large buffs too. Could be a controversial one. Next, it's the Goathead Lunatic Billy. Bullet damage growth once again has been toned down, so you'll really feel these changes with the rate of fire reductions on Billy. Blasted did however get a mixed bag of changes, with the amp being increased by 1%, the melee bonus health being reduced by 10, and the scaling going up to compensate at a rate of 0.8. His ultimate Chain Gang has also been scaled back, with the damage now being 120, down from 150. And thankfully, it will now go on a full cooldown after an interruption. I never really did like the idea of some heroes being able to fake pump ultimates or being refunded on interrupts, so this sounds good to me. As for Drifter, Blood Essence isolation range has been brought down to 20 meters. Stalker's Mark Tier 3 AP upgrade will now also increase its duration by 2 seconds and has had a charge-related bug fix. Finally, his ultimate Eternal Night can be cast more frequently with a 10-second cooldown reduction. Wesley Grey Talon the Legend also got some cheeky buffs. Rain of Arrows airspeed has been buffed to a ratio of 4.1, with his Spirit Snare lifetime being upped by 2 seconds, and finally, that bird that you all hate has been given some upgrades. As a Grey Talon Owl enjoyer, I'll take these. You can now cast them far more frequently with a 10-second cooldown reduction, and an increase on spirit power gained by kill going up by 2. So expect the skies of the Cursed Apple to be full of explosive owls. Rotating from owls to gargoyles, Ivy now no longer has a reduced melee damage stat, and is more in line with the rest of the cast. It was kind of hilarious that Rem shipped with more melee damage than Ivy, so this one makes sense. Who punches harder? A little pillow-wielding figment of dreams, or a literal gang-destroying gargoyle? Now we know. She also now has a small window where allies cannot cancel airdrop pickups, and this should stop accidental cancels that happen instantly when you're grabbed. As for the undead Ice White Kelvin, Ice Path got buffed with the tier 2 cooldown reduction now being minus 17 seconds, tier 3 will also now grant 90 max spirit, and the duration has been upped by a second. Frozen Shelter, his ultimate, is now also going to last for an additional 0.25 seconds. Thanks, climate change. Slamming in next, it's the Lash. Ground strike rotation is now restricted to a 90-degree cone rather than 360 degrees. And they finally resolved some very old bugs with a collision of map geometry blocking ground strike's damage deal on ramps and certain other locations. His grapple tier 1 AP has been reduced from a minus 19-second cooldown reduction to minus 17 seconds, and the spirit scaling damage on Flog was slashed from a rate of 1.1 to 0.85. Crikey. From Bear Pit Fighters to Vampires, it's Mina next. Her move speed went down from 6.6 to 6.5, with her stamina cooldown going up from 3.6 to 3.9. Rake's heal growth on spirit scaling was reduced at a rate of 0.43, and they made some revisions to Love Bites. It now has less spirit scaling, the tier 3 AP upgrade has been put back to its older version, with it now removing 1 stamina from targets rather than 2. This effectively just puts it back to how it was before the last round of Mina adjustments. Now then, let's crack open Paige's chapter. Defend and Fight's barrier has been toned down by 25. Thank you, Yoshi. For context, this went down from 200 to 150 in the previous patch, and now has been nerfed even further to 125. So there's some big reductions here to barrier-based gameplay. Honestly, I don't love barriers in Deadlock being so strong, so I enjoy these adjustments. And captivating read is now no longer so captivating, with the damage being scaled back to 90 from 120. From books to blades, Shiv has had one change to serrated knives. The spirit scaling on impact damage was reduced massively, from a rate of 0.558 to 0.25. Dull blades and less vicious victors. For the Cadaver Man, Aura of Suffering now has far less spirit scaling, down to a ratio of 0.18 to 0.92. Continuing on with the V's, it's time for Viscous. And what's that I see? Viscous nerfs on the horizon? I know, I didn't believe it at first either, but I'm very happy to see it. Spirit per boon has gone up by 0.2, but the real issue, gun viscous, has been targeted. Bullet damage per boon is now reduced from a rate of plus 0.5 to plus 0.36. When you factor in the rate of fire changes that were inside of this patch, this should be noticeable on weapon-oriented SMG viscous builds. The cube will now also no longer purge off ultimate debuffs, and the displacement duration from Puddle Punch has gone down by 0.2 seconds. However, the Queen of Staten Island also got some tweaks, so let's check out what's been done to Vyper. Lots has been changed regarding lethal venom. It now has the max range down from 165 to 140, max damage will now be happening at 30% instead of 25%, and the cooldown's gone up by 4 seconds. But you will get an 8-second cooldown reduction when unlocking her tier 2 AP upgrade. Screwjab Dagger's tier 3 has had its charge cooldown increased from 40% to 55%, and lastly, her ultimate, Petrifying Bowler, had its damage increase from 45 to 165 up to 50 to 180. Ironic the max damage is now a bullseye reference, considering you need to hit the target dead on. Being on target, however, is something Vindicta mains know something about all too well, and for the Ghastly Sniper, there's been a few big changes. Stake tether length no longer increases when the capture radius increases. Her ultimate Assassinate also now grants plus 5 weapon damage per kill, rather than the bonus bounty souls, rewarding the flat damage growth for finishing players off, rather than an economical soul edge. The tier 3 AP investment now also grants an additional plus 4% weapon damage per kill. This also applies retroactively if you've already built up some stacks, so Vindicta could absolutely be back on the menu with these changes. And last but not least, it's time to change the world. Oh no, it's just time to change Warden's bullet growth again. It's been brought down from 0.47 to 0.44. And with that said, that's all the balance changes in regular Deadlock for the heroes. And if you enjoy these detailed patch breakdowns, why not subscribe to Dead Air and ring that YouTube notification bell to be informed whenever we post an episode of Patch Notice. Next up then, let's talk about the Street Brawl specific changes. Street Brawl has now been given specific balancing modifiers only for the game mode. Heroes and items have been adjusted to better suit the style of the hectic matchups it produces. You'll see these adjustments reflected in the item and hero tooltips of the UI, showing a special mark for Brawl adjustments. You'll also now be rewarded for selecting the random hero option via a bonus reroll for the first and second round of the game. Very cool. Alongside that, they also adjusted the global ultimate cooldown timer that kicks in from the beginning of a round. It'll now be 5 seconds longer for all heroes. Troopers also got some sweeping adjustments. They had their spawn rate changed from 20 seconds in the first 3 rounds and 15 seconds in rounds 4 and 5 to be a faster 18 seconds in round 1 and 2 and 15 seconds in rounds 3, 4 and 5. They also deal a bonus 20 damage per second during overtime, that's after the 3-minute mark. Troopers also have 20% increased spirit resistance baseline, and an increase of a bonus 20% during OT. In regards to the objective resistance decay, it'll now peak at the 2.2 minute mark, rather than 2.5 minutes. Objective resistance decay also now goes down to minus 60%, instead of capping out at minus 50%. They also got rid of the global 40% healing reduction. If you didn't know, the game was only giving you 60% effectiveness of your healing abilities and items in Brawls, so healing in Brawl now works as you'd expect in regular games. Probably for the best, as it's actually felt pretty good in my opinion. Lastly, a few Brawl items got adjusted. The legendary item category saw changes to their drop rates, increasing the frequency of getting them slightly more. And by the way, top tip, if you get a legendary and you don't like that legendary, you can just re-roll it and the game will give you another legendary 100% of the time. This works the same for all item re-rolls in regards to their rarity. Re-roll an enhanced, you'll get another enhanced. Prism Blast also had a DPS reduction, going down from 300 to 270, with the enhanced variant of Unstable Concoction being adjusted to now give increased bonus weapon damage, damage spirit power, and stun duration. And it will no longer grant you increased duration or cooldown. Alchemical Fire, the most meta brawl item you could possibly draft, will now also have a flat 30% damage reduction in the mode. Cursed Relic will also have its duration reduced from 3.25 seconds to a more reasonable 2.75 seconds. And for some quick thoughts on the item changes, we saw sweeping adjustments made to stamina items in this patch, with their air distance and stamina recovery being nerfed on Stamina Mastery. A lot of cooldowns were adjusted to balance some of the flavour of the meta items. Resto Locket was adjusted to be a self-cast only item, with 10 seconds knocked off its CD. Cold Front and Arctic Blast had the vertical hitbox and spread changed to make them more reliable, giving them an extra meter to play with. Echo Shard will now no longer have a cast time. Mystic Reverb now grants the imbued ability with plus 30% spirit lifesteal for any damage it does, including the reverb itself. Glass Cannon is now also going to make you actually feel a little bit more like you're made out of glass, with it having the max health penalty being increased from minus 13% to minus 15%. All in all, these item changes have a lot of nuance to them, so definitely check out the patch notes directly, or why not tune in to the latest episode of the Dead Air podcast that will be releasing soon on both Spotify and the brand new Dead Air podcast YouTube channel, link below. You'll be able to get yourself a full breakdown of the patch and the new heroes with myself and our analyst friend SEO, going through everything that you need to know about for the extra in-depth review of the patch. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to our YouTube members. Patch Notice would not be possible without the support of our deadheads, allowing me and Daisy to make Deadlock videos full time. If you'd like to join these legends and be featured at the end of Patch Notice, consider joining today. You can also, of course, support us by subscribing to Dead Air and ringing the YouTube notification bell to be informed whenever we upload. And on that balanced patch-based bombshell, we'll see you next time. Get back out there and enjoy the refreshed Deadlock meta. As always, I've been your host Jacky, and I'll see you next time.